What's up, everybody? It's Soren Baker here on Unique Access Entertainment. As always, please hit that subscribe button. It's right down there and it's free. That enables us to keep coming to y'all as often as possible with as many interviews as possible. Now, today we have the honor and privilege of being joined by phenomenal filmmaker, showrunner, friend of mine, Randy Ferrell. Thank you for coming through, sir.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, so Randy has, among many other things in the works, he has a new show that's on Max, Justice USA. It's airing. You can catch a lot of the episodes up. They got more coming, but definitely check it out after you watch this interview. So, Randy, you have an extensive background with television and producing from Death Row Chronicles, No Limit Chronicles, and now Justice USA, among other things. So, what about you personally and professionally has led you into being interested in the rap world and then in the criminal justice world?
Well, I grew up 90s era hip hop, so I've loved music ever since a child. My parents playing oldies in the house, and when I was in high school, me and a couple friends of mine were sampling. So, I've always been into the music part and have been blessed professionally to work with a lot of rappers. As you mentioned, Death Row Chronicles, No Limit Chronicles. So worked with Snoop, Dre, Master P, and all the No Limit artists. And then, on the other side of it, the journalism side of it, that was kind of a fluke. I mean, I was a athlete in high school and college. I got injured, was smart enough to go to grad school, and just on a whim went out to SC, joined the, broadcast journalism program, and the rest is, as they say, history.
Okay. And then what about, because before Justice USA, you've also done some crime and justice, quote unquote, justice related endeavors
For sure.
in film and television. So what drew you to that genre or lane or angle?
I think for me, I'm always just looking for a good story to tell. And obviously, being somebody who has eyes and observes things around the country, criminal justice, social justice are very important things. I think what's unique about some of the projects that I work on is they're all character based, even though they can be, topics that are, things that a professor would talk to you about. I think that's what's unique about Justice USA is that, we didn't want to put experts on the screen. We just wanted to put people in the shoes of people going through the criminal justice system. It's a unique approach that you don't often see on television, without an agenda. And I think that makes it more digestible. So for me, just to answer your question more specifically, it's all about the people, it's about the characters and really using them to tell an important story.
Well, approaching it from a as much as possible agendaless approach, how did you and the rest of the creative team come up with the angle and the way that you explored doing Justice USA?
Well, first, let me give props to Marshall Goldberg. He was the person who came up with this idea. He's a lawyer by lawyer by education, writer by trade. So, if you remember some of the shows back in the 80s, like Life Goes On, LA Law, even The Jeffersons, he wrote for those shows. But, he's always been a civil rights advocate. He helped write, he helped work on the Voting Rights Act of 1965. And so he had this idea of, nobody really knows what the criminal justice system is like. So why don't we show people what that is? And so definitely have to give props to Marshall. He had this brainchild and the perseverance. I mean, it was 9 years in the making and probably 13 years since he had the idea. So the perseverance. So I can't take any of the credit for the idea, but the other partner we had on this was Mike Tolan, who many people would know from The Last Dance. I mean, Mike is a genius. He's got a lot of great documentaries in the sports world, but also, is just another great storyteller. And so the two of them came to me and said, "Hey, we have this concept. How do we execute it?" I saw a pilot and I was like, I think we can do this and I think we can do it on a bigger scale. And the process is just looking at who these people are, meeting them, and just, letting the story tell itself. That was the real concept. And agendaless. If Justice USA showed the criminal justice system in Nashville as being perfect, then that's the documentary would have gotten. Probably much to the chagrin of everybody who was interested in making it.
And much to the not surprise of anyone watching it, it's not perfect. That being said, another member of your executive slash production team is Common, of course, acclaimed on many, many levels and many different hats. So, how, why, and what did he get involved in? What did he help you guys do with Justice USA?
Yeah, I mean, Common was involved at the outset of the pitches. I know that, he's very passionate about criminal justice and criminal justice reform. Many people would know that he's gone into prisons and jails and performed and interacted with inmates. So I know this issue was very close and near and dear to him. Throughout the production, we worked with Common's team, keeping them in the loop. He had people from his production company, working with us when we were on location. So, this is very important to Common. And I think he's very proud. I mean, he's expressed that he's very proud of the way it turned out.
That's a beautiful thing. So, given that Nashville is a major city in the United States, but it's also not one synonymous with, I'd say, on the national consciousness, crime per se,
Right.
or chaos for that matter. It's more of a country town, I guess people would say. So, how, and why did you guys end up picking Nashville as the home slash the location for Justice USA?
I mean, there's a simple answer. Nashville was the only city that would let us do it. Marshall went around to a bunch of other cities. LA was probably a non-starter. I think Fresno, some other California cities. Nashville, it's interesting. It's a progressive part of a very conservative state. And so it's a really interesting mix of people. And it's kind of become this thing where it's like Las Vegas in a little bit of a way for bachelorette parties were going on. We'd be filming outside the jail and you see these party buses with lots of women having a good time. So Nashville was the only place that would give us the access that we asked for. No filters, no requests to view, nothing like that. They just let us do what we wanted to do, and we could show their system, warts and all. And I think what you come away with is that there's a lot of great people who make up that system, a lot of people who are well intentioned, but it should come as a surprise to no one that incarceration, as itself is a life altering experience.
No, I definitely think you get that impression from Justice USA. And speaking of the party side of Nashville, one thing that was particularly striking to me as I watched Justice USA, especially the first couple episodes, and as it's heavy on the first part of the case of Tristan Williams, one of the inmates that you guys highlight and use as a through line throughout the show, is the fact that the juvenile detention center is literally across the street from Nissan Stadium where the Titans play. And I thought that juxtaposition, not knowing that because I'd never been to see the Titans play in Tennessee, was so striking. So, what perspective did you get from Tristan or anyone involved in his case? Or did you guys talk about the fact that, hey, literally, like, I can see through the window of this juvenile detention center where the Titans are playing, and I can hear the roar of the crowd from the stadium, and yet here I am, less than 100 yards away, but in a different world.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely talked to Tristan about that a little bit and some of the other youth who were incarcerated there. It is a weird, weird thing. I mean, we're talking 50 to 100 yards, away from the Juvenile Justice Center. You have where the Titans play. And on game day, we actually filmed, and you can hear the stadium clearly, loudly from the Justice Center. And so I think for those kids, those teens who are incarcerated, it's just another kind of thing where they're like, I wish I was not inside. It really brought their captivity, for lack of a better word, or their incarceration, really brought it into focus. The fact that people could be out there enjoying themselves and they were inside, obviously for alleged crimes that they committed, but nonetheless inside in a place that's cold and oftentimes dark and oftentimes very depressing. So yeah, it made it real for sure.
And with Tristan as well, there's also the sense, uh, which I think is an atrocity on multiple levels, that he had to wait more than 440 days to even get the transfer hearing. So not his hearing to see if he was going to go to trial, but just to see if he was getting switched from juvenile up to adult court. So what did you learn about the process and see about it that enables this to happen?
Well, I think that's an excellent question because that's one of the most eye-opening things, right? Is they always say the wheels of justice turn slow. I mean, they really, really do. And I think in Justice USA, you see that we have lots of characters who are going through the system and have to wait a really long time to even be heard or seen by a judge. And so with Tristan, I think he had very serious charges. There were witnesses. There was a witness, rather, who was still alive, and he had a really good attorney who was fighting on his behalf. And that whole process of going back and forth between the DA and his attorneys took a long time. I know there were some other circumstances that we didn't cover in the film or in the series, but yeah, I mean, it took a long time, and that's emblematic of the justice system in and of itself.
Yeah.
Things take a long time.
And then, given that Nashville is a large city in the United States, it's not a massive city, but I also thought you show in Justice USA that I thought, at least as it was unfolding, crazy coincidence without revealing the spoiler about him and Caleb Williams, Tristan Williams and Caleb Williams, no relation, at least as revealed early in the show. But um, the fact that they end up seeing each other when they're getting their haircut. Um, as that was happening, did anyone have any ahead of time knowledge that they were going to be there? Was it a pure mistake, pure coincidence? Like,
Yeah, so Tristan and Caleb had an issue without giving it away. They had an issue on the outside. They were actually separated in different pods within the Juvenile Justice Center. So they didn't see each other or interact on a daily basis. I'm sure they knew, or maybe they didn't even know. I'm not actually sure. Maybe they didn't even know one or the other was there. But that day was actually Super Bowl Sunday. So I remember it vividly. And it was a mistake. It was a pure mistake. They move inmates around on a schedule, and there was no way that Tristan and Caleb were supposed to be in that same environment given their history. So yeah, it was a pure mistake, and there are consequences for those mistakes. And luckily, well, I guess you have to watch to find
yeah, you
out.
should watch. That being said, Tristan and Caleb are juveniles when they're first incarcerated. We first meet them in Justice USA, but of course, the show or the series includes discussion of many, many adults. And one that struck out was the Zachary Brill, because a lot of times in the media, a lot of times I'd say the perception is, which is wrong because it's a perception, it's not reality, that it's black and brown incarcerated only. And Zachary gives an example of a white man who's incarcerated, but also was a former minor league baseball player. He has his mom in his life, but he ends up incarcerated as well. So how was it difficult to find a quote unquote diverse jail population, or is there just a lot of diversity in the Nashville system? How did that work?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at the numbers and you ask the public defender, there is an overrepresentation of black and brown people incarcerated in Nashville, as is
Um,
the
I
case
was about to say,
across.
sadly, that's not distinctive to Nashville, I'm sure.
For sure. But I will say that, we encountered many people inside the jail of all different ethnicities and races. And Zach, in particular, was a really special and important case because it is somebody who has a family member in his life. He lost his brother. I don't think that's really a spoiler, but, has a mom who cares about him deeply. But, he has mental health issues, and as do many, many, many people who are incarcerated. And part of the issue that is revealed in Justice USA, not just in Zach's story, but also in others, is that if you have mental health and you have an issue with law enforcement, now you're double stigmatized. So you have a mental health issue and a criminal record. And who's that going to help? So I think, the Davidson County Sheriff's Office recognizes this issue as a big issue within their jails. Later in the series, we go to a part of the jail that they built, which is revolutionary, called the Behavioral Care Center. It's a basically a care center where people who are incarcerated go. They're not treated the same way that they're treated in jail. They have treatment programs. They have one-on-one counseling. So it's a really unique thing for a jail system. But the bottom line is, there are other characters in our series who are not African American. Um, we have many different characters and many different backgrounds, and it just goes to show that incarceration is an issue that touches everyone.
Yeah, like it we meet in episode 3, I believe it was, the white couple that's heroin addicts, and their arrest and then their subsequent separation, and then the male gets out after a day, and then the woman is still inside. So there's a lot of that. And speaking that, you did cover male and female. One of the earlier people that was covered also was Teresa Waters, and her case, somewhat similar to Tristan's, is she had to wait so long for these court things to play out, to churn through the system. So with her case, and she's dealing with domestic violence both as the accused and the accuser, um how with her, and being a woman navigating it, and then actually talking to her for the show, and I'm sure outside just talking, like it seems a recurring theme regardless of race, gender, background, or whatever, is the unimaginable devastation that happens to the people's lives. So with her in particular, what did you see of the change in the roller coaster of her emotions throughout the filming of Justice USA?
Yeah, I mean, Teresa is a person who certainly, to a degree, a significant degree, wears her emotions on her sleeve. So we are privileged that she's brave enough to be that open with us throughout the series. And you do notice absolutely 100% a change in her demeanor. And it is a roller coaster. She comes in, you meet her in the very beginning of the series, and she's kind of new to this world of incarceration. And then she has a mental break just being in jail and seeing the things that she sees. And then later in the series, as she's trying to navigate whether she wants to hire a public defender, which she doesn't want to do, or spend money that she doesn't really have to spend to get her own lawyer. And so there's that issue. Being bonded out, all of these things that people go through that nobody really knows how they impact a person. So, by the time we see Teresa at the end, she's really gone through this evolution. I will say about Teresa that she's a very optimistic and kind of effervescent personality. So I think there's some resiliency that she's built that, other characters that we have in the series don't have. So, it's funny. I saw Teresa last week in Nashville. We had a screening and she's doing really well. I think that resiliency and having people in your life who care about you is important, especially for people who are incarcerated.